Welcome back to the channel. Especially on my octave mandolin, I spend a lot of time playing chords, looking at chord charts. So I wanted to make a video talking through how to read a chord chart, because some of these symbols, some of these chords, you wouldn't know what they meant and what they are telling you to play if you have not been taught. So we're gonna walk through, what does Gsus mean? What does a C/E chord mean? How do I read that? How do I play that? We're gonna cover all of that in today's video. So before we go any further, don't forget to hit that like button down below and let's get into it. So let's just start with kind of a very basic understanding of what chords are and how they are made. If you take a C chord, okay? We're playing a C chord. C is what we would call our bass note, and that just means that it's the lowest note. If you are playing a whole bunch of notes in a chord, C is the note that's on the very bottom of all of those. It's your bass note. And typically, whatever chord you're playing, if you're playing a C chord, you want your C to be the bass note. If you are playing a D chord, you would want a D as your bass note. If you're playing an F chord, you would want an F as the bass note. And also, if you are confused, chords are made up of multiple notes. Every single chord has 3 notes. I'll get into that a little bit more later, but just know that every single chord is made up of 3 different notes played at one time. All of those notes together played at one time creates the sound of a chord. So back to our C chord, you'd have C on the bottom as your bass note, but we're going to say that the C is equivalent to our number 1. Okay, so whatever your bass note is, that note is equivalent to number 1. Now what we're going to do to build this chord is we're going to go up 2 notes. So you have your C, we need to get to the 3. So we're gonna skip what would be 2. So if you're walking up the C major scale, you would have a C note, a D note, an E note. If you put numbers to each of those letters, you'd have a 1, 2, 3. So we're gonna take the 1, which is our C, we're gonna skip the 2, go straight to the 3. So that 3 would be an E. So now we've got a C and an E. We need to get to the last note in this chord, which would be the 5. So F would be our 4. We're gonna skip that, go straight to the 5, which would be a G. So we've got C, E, G. Boom. Those are the 3 notes that make up a C major chord. If that's a little bit confusing, that's okay. Don't get too bogged down with it. I'm saying that because we are going to build off of that in the future. So you don't have to know exactly what notes are in every chord. You don't have to know the theory behind why everything works. Just know that there are lots of numbers in chord symbols, and the way to figure out what the number means is knowing that the bass note is equivalent to your number 1. So, say you are looking at a chord chart and you come across a chord that says C major 7. What that means is that you need to find the 7. So we already talked about your 1, 3, 5. So we just count up 2 more notes. So A would be your 6, B natural is gonna be your 7. So you would add that note to the notes that you already have in your chord. So for a C major 7, you would be playing a C, an E, a G, and a B, all at the same time. Here's your normal C chord. If you add the 7, it's that top note right there, that's our B. And we would call this a C major 7 because that 7 is 1 half step away from a C. And what that means is that the note B, here is the B, that is 1 fret away from your C note. They are super, super close together. It's also the same as going from a white key to a black key on a piano. They are as close together as you could possibly get in terms of notes. B to C. That is called a C major 7 chord. Now, where it gets confusing is there is also a C7 chord. If you drop the little word major and you get a C7, it does become a different chord. And what this is called, a C7 also has the term of a dominant 7. What that means is that we're going to take that B note that we were just talking about, and we are going to lower that down 1/2 step. So we're going to take it from a B down to a B flat. That's going to give us our C7 chord, thus making it a dominant 7. Here's what that would sound like. Okay, that's your C7 chord. So C major 7, we've got this note on top. We're lowering that 1/2 step, 1 fret. That gives us our dominant 7, or C7. If you were going to do this in another key, let's take the key of G, for instance. So in the key of G, you have 1 sharp, you have an F sharp. So you've got G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, back to G. So if you saw on a chord chart G major 7, what you need to do, again, so now we're in a new chord, so G is going to be your 1, and you would take your G, your 1, you would go to your 3, which would be B, you'd go to your 5, which would be D, and you need to go up to your 7 in the key, which is going to be F sharp. And it's a major 7 because that F sharp is 1/2 step away from your G. Those two notes are right next to each other. You have F sharp and G. The F sharp is in the key of G. You don't have to alter it. You don't have to do anything to it to make it a major 7. It just is the 7 in the key of G, the F sharp. So that would be your G major 7 chord. Beautiful chord. If we want to make this a G7, if you see a G7, what that means, so you take the F sharp and you would lower it 1/2 step. So you take it down from an F sharp to an F. That would give us this chord, and that would make it a dominant 7. Okay, let's go to maybe some simpler chords. If you see a G sus, sometimes you will just see, it'll look like that. It'll say G and then S-U-S, sus. That stands for suspended. And there are 2 different kinds of suspended chords. People have different groups of thought when it comes to these chords, but typically if you see a G sus, or sometimes it'll be notated as a Gsus4, that means you are taking the 3rd note of the chord. So I mentioned we've got 1, 3, 5. Every single chord, those are your building blocks. You're always going to start there. You're always going to start with your 1, your 3, your 5, and then you're going to alter the chord for whatever it's telling you to do. A sus means that you raise the 3rd note up to the 4. Okay, so in the key of G, our 3rd note was a B. So to make it a suspended chord, what we need to do is we need to raise that B up to a C. So now we would be playing a G, a C, and a D. And sometimes that's why you will actually see Gsus4. They're just telling you, hey, we want you to suspend the 4. And a suspended chord, it sounds like what you might expect. It sounds suspended. It does not sound complete. This would be a Gsus chord. And a lot of the time, a suspended chord will resolve. So you might have a Gsus, so G, C, D, that resolves down to just a G, the GVD. The other group of thought here, sometimes you might see a Gsus2, and that means you would be suspending the 2nd note. So you would take that 3rd note and move it down to a 2. So then you'd have G, A, and D. And sometimes this will also just be notated as a G2 chord, means the same thing. So Gsus4 and G2, exactly the same chord. You would have a G, you would add the 2, which would be A, and then you would have your D. So this is your G2 chord or your Gsus2. It kind of has the same effect. You can go to a G chord and resolve it up to a G. So you're taking that A and then bringing it up to a B. Okay, let's continue to talk about a chord symbol that confuses many people. And I totally get it. I totally understand why. So if you had a G/B chord, what in the world does that mean? Do you play a G chord? Do you play a B chord? Do you play them both at the same time? Do you play a G note? Do you play a B note? I'm going to clarify that for you so that you never have to wonder what that means ever again. Whatever chord is on top, that is the chord that you're playing. Whatever letter is on top, if you have a G over B, G is the chord that you're playing, okay? So you're still going to have your G, your B, your D. That's there. Now, what the bottom number is, they're telling you, hey, and we want you to play a B as your bass note, okay? So instead of playing a G, because it's automatically assumed that if you see a G chord, your G is going to be your bass note. That's how chords work. And so what if you don't want the G as the bass note? Well, that's when they would notate it like this, and they would say G/B. That can look two different ways. I'll put them both here on the screen so that you can see. But it means the same thing. You are playing a G chord, but you're gonna play a B as your bass note instead of a G. And a lot of time when you do this, because you're moving the B down to the bass, you'll just have your G and D on top. So you'll have B in the bass, a G, and then a D. You typically don't want to have a B in the bass and then still play a higher B. You pretty much just move that down and you're still playing a B, it's just a lower B, and then you'll have G and D on top. So that sounds like this, that this is your normal G chord. To make it a G over B chord, so our bass note moved. So it went from there with a G on the bass up to a B in the bass, right? So that's what that sounds like. Hopefully that clears up the confusion surrounding that chord symbol. So yes, hopefully that makes sense. This is a very deep topic, and we could we could dive into a rabbit trail of a whole bunch of theory in making chords, which if you guys are interested in, let me know down in the comments, because music theory was my favorite subject as a kid. I absolutely love it and would love to make some more in-depth videos on music theory and chord theory and how all of that works. So if you're interested in that, let me know. But hopefully this clarifies some of the mystery surrounding some of these chord symbols. Let me know if it did down in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It truly helps me out. Thank you for being here, for watching this video, and I will see you guys in my next one.